It was a day about 26 years ago in the deserts of Kutch in India. The sun was restless, and I saw her. A woman bent low to the ground, her hands frail with fatigue, but fierce with faith. She was gently watering and sowing tiny seeds in the barren ground. I asked, Why? Why do you sow when the soil is so dry? She looked up, her eyes full of hope, and she said, Because one day the rains will come, and then if the seeds are not planted, what will the rains awaken? Because one day the rains will come, and if the seeds are not planted, what will the rains awaken? Dear dignitaries and friends, Namaste and a very good morning. Thank you, AVPN and Naina, for inviting me here today. This spirit of awakening, of planting in faith, of believing in tomorrow, is the spirit that I see here in this room today. And that is why, as I learn more about AVPN, I see more than a network. I see a movement. I see a belief. I see a powerful ocean fed by many rivers, philanthropists, businesses, change makers, all coming together for one common cause: to create impact. My dear friends, talking about impact, let me take you about almost 4 decades back. I had graduated as a dentist, and as a young doctor, my purpose was also to create impact by becoming the best dentist in the city of Ahmedabad. But God had different plans for me. I was in my early 20s when I married Gautam. He too was in his 20s, restless, ambitious, and dreaming what most thought would be impossible. Yes, the world would one day know him as one of the greatest contemporary builders of infrastructure. But long before that, I saw a different side of him. It was a conviction he would often talk to me about. Preeti, the worth of nation building is not what gets constructed, but in what gets sustained. The educational institutions that enlighten, the hospitals that nurture and heal, the livelihoods that uplift, if these sustain, our legacy sustains. I did not know then who Gautam would become, but what I did have was faith. Faith in his drive, faith in his stories, faith in his vision for India, and faith in his belief of nation building. It was this faith that made me give up the profession of dentistry, which I loved, and take up the walk along with Gautam to fulfill his dreams and journey. It is needless to say, I never imagined that the little lamp we lit in 1996 would grow into the Adani Foundation, and it will be supported by the Adani family's pledge of $7 billion towards philanthropy. What I did imagine and strongly believe is that if we nurtured with conviction, the rains will come someday. And they did. Today, our work spans across five interconnected pillars: education, community health and nutrition, community infrastructure, sustainable livelihoods, and climate action. And the seeds that we had planted has grown into a foundation which reaches more than 7,000 Indian villages and touches more than 9.6 million lives every year. My friends, but this is not about only numbers. It's about the stories behind these numbers. The stories of relief from drudgery, the stories of hope, stories of transformation, and stories of empowerment. So today, let me share a few of the several thousand stories that shape my belief every single day. We found Vansh in Umarpada, which is a tribal region of Gujarat. He was 3 years old and weighed only 8 kilograms. A child of this age should normally weigh 16 to 18 kilograms. His breath was shallow, his body wasting, and his eyes lifeless. His mother's gaze mirrored the same dismay. But then came into picture the Adani Suposhan Sangini. Adani Suposhan Sanginis are local women trained by the Adani Foundation to work in the villages and support the communities. Our Sangini carried Vansh to the local nutrition center. She sat every single day with his mother, educating her, encouraging her, and refusing to surrender. Months later, I returned, and I did not see the weakness. I saw wings. Vansh was racing across the dusty roads. He was dancing, singing, skipping, flying like a butterfly. He was alive. He was free. This idea of freedom takes me to my next story. Rekha Bisen. She was a widow from Berdipar, near our power plant in Tiroda in Maharashtra. When her husband passed away in a road accident, her whole world collapsed. 2 children to feed, no education, no work. She was totally trapped. It is then that yet another Adani Sangini heard her story and reached out to help. Rekha rose brilliantly to that occasion. She learned, she implemented, and she inspired. She chose not to remain just the recipient of help, but in fact, she grew to become a leader. She became the first woman in her village to run the village's milk chilling center. Not only that, her success motivated 130 other women to break the shackles of despair and lead a life of dignity. Thus, Rekha bought not just her own ticket to freedom, but she inspired many more others to take the ticket of freedom. Then there is Sonal Gadvi, who too was to buy her ticket to freedom, literally. Sonal was born in a very poor farming family in Mudra in Kutch, where girls were generally not educated beyond primary school. But Sonal's father and Sonal, they decided and they dared to dream differently. Sonal was enrolled in the Adani public school. The school gave her beyond education, gave her beyond knowledge. It gave her a platform which led her to dream, a platform which allowed her to aspire, and a platform which gave her wings to fly. Fast forward, from her small village, Sonal flew to Ireland to pursue a master's degree in corporate finance. Today, she works at Apple, and earlier this year, she stunned us all by ranking 4th globally in a top strategic case study exam. My dear friends, I share these stories not just to impress, but to remind you that these are only tiny glimpses of the reality around us. The reality that calls for more than inspiration, the reality that calls for responsibility, and the reality that calls for action. And so, this is not a moment to clap, it's a moment to commit. The journeys of Vansh, Rekha, and Sonal, they are representations of what commitment looks like. A mother collaborating to plant seeds of hope in another mother's life. A widow multiplying her impact to cultivate opportunities for others. And a girl developing her skills and characters to inspire so many others to follow. This has been our model. And so today I want you all to go with 3 guiding principles that I hope we can all work together on. The first one, we must be co-builders and not just donors. Philanthropy is not just a one-way act of giving, but real change happens when we work as partners. Philanthropists, corporates, governments, and the communities. When we come together, pooling our resources, exchanging our ideas, and breaking down silos. So, when we co-build, every dollar stretches further, and every solution impacts faster. Secondly, we must transform our beneficiaries into multipliers. Beneficiaries must not just remain recipients of help, but they are best when they are trained to become the creators of hope. When one girl is educated, she lightens the path for several others. When one woman is empowered, she empowers or awakens the entire community. So true measure of impact is in not what we give, but in how we can extend our beneficiaries as multipliers of change. Third, we must unite skills with values. To give skills without values is like to build without a foundation. True transformation comes when we teach skills that create opportunities along with values that awakens a purpose. And this is what carries change from one generation to the next. No force is more powerful, and no multiplier has greater impact than the belief in a purpose. So these 3 principles, to co-build, to transform beneficiaries into multipliers, and to unite skills with values, are the foundations extending impact. So my dear friends, allow me to close by saying, we must stand together, not just as donors, but as co-builders, not just in sympathy, but in solidarity, not just in hope, but in the belief of a better tomorrow. We must be the generation that sowed in the drought, that believed before the rains came, that built a harvest of dignity and opportunity to all. Because, friends, the rains will come. And when they do, we must be able to say that it was us in this room of dreamers whose rivers flowed into the ocean of collaboration, whose currents merged to multiply hope, and whose tides rose to carry skills to every single shore. And my promise to you is that I stand here committed with AVPN and all of you for the years ahead. Namaste. Thank you.